Good day. My name's Liam Neeson. I have a particular set of skills, and the only question I have is who was it who gave my female family member the 35 best minutes of her sexual life? I want to find that black bastard, and I want him dead. Right now, Chronicles of Judas tied up. I have him in a corner with his mouth gagged. He talks too much anyway. Right now, what I want information. I want to know who that black bastard was who gave my female family member 5 orgasms in 35 minutes. I need to know that shit right now because I want him dead.
Oh, shit. All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I meant to cover this story when it first happened, but I've been a little bit busy. Either way, we're going to get to it now. And when I say get to it, I mean, we're going to cover this from a series of perspectives that I think are pertinent for the so-called black man. Number one, did I have an issue with what Liam Neeson said? No, I did not. Why is that? Because I'm not even quite sure if it was a sincere story or something that actually happened. It may have just been a stunt that he strategically utilized in order to galvanize the fan base that he thought was going to be watching that movie, that being older Caucasian males, to believe that he has a spirit that is simpatico with them. Or maybe he just had a slip of the mind and a slip of the tongue, but I doubt that. I think that it was strategic. I think that Liam Neeson is an old dog in an old game, and he understands how publicity works. And I just don't believe that he would be that absent-minded to actually put forth a story like that and not expect for there to be repercussions. I just think, in my view, that it was something that he strategically said, whether that event actually occurred or not. Either way, it really did not offend me because if the story actually did transpire like he said, one could certainly understand a man thinking along those lines to a degree. Now, of course, he turned it into a microcosmic race war where he thought he was just going to slaughter every so-called black man that he saw. And I don't think that he was being fully transparent there, because if he really felt that way, as soon as he saw a so-called black man, he would have attacked him. He would not have waited for that so-called black man to make a move towards him. What I found rather humorous was that during the interview with Robin Roberts, the liberal black female pansexual host of Good Morning America who interviewed him, she once again took on the air that we see so many super liberal black females take on whenever they speak about issues pertaining to so-called black men. And that is her acting as if she was sympathetic to the quote-unquote plight of so-called black men who may be subjected to the lynch mob mentality, or the any nigga will do mentality, or the pick a nigga mentality. But overall, I think that it was as much of a publicity stunt, or it has the possibility of being a publicity stunt, as anything else. And it's something that he can bounce back from. That's if, once again, if the story is sincere. I noticed that they made a point of highlighting his age. Liam Neeson is 66 years old. And one has to wonder if, once again, he was signaling his target base. That being mostly conservative American Caucasian males between about the age of 30 and 55 years old, and also European males. Now, Liam Neeson has basically taken over the genre of cinema that I like to call the revenge flick. And we first saw that genre come into prominence through Clint Eastwood, who came to fame in many of the quote-unquote westerns, where the overall plot paradigm would be, at the start of the film, either he would get robbed or he would get beat down by a caravan of cowboys or bandits, and then for the rest of the film, he will hunt them down and kill them. That genre of cinema, the quote-unquote revenge flick, as I call it, it kind of got its start, you could say, with Humphrey Bogart and John Wayne. Humphrey Bogart had the film noir cinema genre, and within that, oftentimes he would seek revenge on many of the antagonists in the film. But the concepts behind that style of film did not reach its full bloom, in my view, until Clint Eastwood. Now, what Clint Eastwood did was he took the Western and certain aspects of the film noir that really came to the fore with Humphrey Bogart, and he brought them together, and eventually you had the action film. And that really came into prominence with Steve McQueen in the mid-'60s into the late 60s. And then, of course, the legendary Bruce Lee. He also was a major contributor to the quote-unquote revenge flick paradigm. But what you'll notice, in most Bruce Lee movies, he had to die or go to jail at the end of his film. Or he might just walk off and never be seen again. Bruce Lee was on record as stating that he got many of the ideas for his films from Westerns. And that's why you would see the same thing. Bruce Lee would walk into a town and certain people might be getting oppressed by another entity, another force, and he would kill them, and either he would get arrested or he would walk off never to be seen again. But he felt like it was important that anyone who saw his films would see that there were repercussions for engaging in wanton violence, even if the audience was made to believe that it was necessary. Now, Clint Eastwood and also Charles Bronson, they took on the revenge flick paradigm in cinema, and they were able to live at the end of their film. And we know why that is, because they had the complexion for the connection. We carried over into the 1980s, and you had Mel Gibson, who kind of took on a lot of that revenge flick aspect in his films. Movies like The Road Warrior and later on the Lethal Weapon flicks, where he could kill indiscriminately just based off of the notion that someone had quote-unquote done him wrong. Now, we've seen certain black actors who were allowed to embrace that overall character archetype of being able to get revenge, but it was always in protection of the Caucasian, either the Caucasian society or in particular of a little Caucasian girl, normally with blonde hair. We've seen that mostly with Denzel Washington, Will Smith a little bit, but especially with Denzel. And that was very important in crafting his image, that he was basically allowed to play the super security guard. We saw that in Man on Fire, Virtuosity, The Pelican Brief, so on and so forth. This notion that Denzel had been this actor who has transcended race could not be further from the truth. I don't want to get too far off the topic. The point being is that as we go through the process of the development of the revenge flick genre, we eventually get to Liam Neeson, who really has taken it to its ultimate. Because Liam Neeson, he makes movies and you expect him to be kicking somebody's ass in every movie. Every movie he makes, he's whooping somebody's ass or he's teaching somebody how to whoop ass. Remember, he played Batman's trainer in the first Dark Knight movie. He also played the trainer of Darth Vader in the Star Wars flick, The Phantom Menace. Right? So, I mean, we know what the character archetype of Liam Neeson is. He's a person who's allowed to whoop people's asses indiscriminately. And I think that in order to push the film and to try to publicize the film, he felt like he could relate this story. And no matter what the controversy would be, it would not turn off his core audience. So I do believe that there was some method to his madness. So let's read a little bit of this article here. It says, Liam Neeson says he walked the streets hoping to kill a black man after a family member was raped. Now, in other versions of this story I've seen where supposedly it was just a woman that he knew. On this website, they claim that it was a family member. I mean, honestly, I think that if it was a family member, I think that he would have said that it was a family member. Maybe he does not want to embarrass the woman. Who knows? That's assuming that the story is real and that the woman actually exists. Says that Liam Neeson said in a bizarre new interview that he once walked the streets armed with a club for a week in hopes of killing a black man after a family member told him she was raped by a black male. Allegedly, she was raped by a black male. If the story is true, maybe she was raped. Maybe she wasn't. Who knows? In an interview with The Independent published Monday, the veteran actor recalled an incident where he harbored racist thoughts after a member of his family told him she was raped. There's something primal. God forbid you've ever had a member of your family hurt under criminal conditions. The actor began the story, which he said he has never before shared. But I have to ask this question. For the writer of this article to claim that Neeson alleged that he had racist thoughts, well, were the thoughts racist or were they vengeful? Because supposedly he had reason for wanting to hunt down a black man. right? If he's telling the story and his motivation for hurting the black man was actually correctly communicated, supposedly he wanted to hunt down a black man because it was supposed to be in revenge for what was done to his family member, allegedly. But the fact that they're honing in on the race aspect tells me that very possibly this was a fully contrived story that he put forth or dispensed through the mainstream media to get a certain point across or to encourage a certain energy. Once again, I noticed that in many of the articles, they chose to accentuate the fact that he was 66 years old. For those of you brothers who may have seen the Revenge of the Sith movie and the Star Wars series, there was a portion in that movie where they declared the code red on the Jedi and they said execute Order 66. Remember that? They had to execute Order 66 to wipe out the Jedi, aka the quote-unquote good witches. So who knows what this issue may actually have been about, but I do know that what was interesting was the response to Liam Neeson's statements from one Michelle Rodriguez, but we'll be getting to her later because I find that aspect to be even more telling than the Liam Neeson aspect. But Liam Neeson is just another Hollywood witch. Don't get that twisted at all. And everything that he says has an intent behind it and is meant to cast a spell. Your words can cast a spell, especially if you're a person of interest. If you're someone who people look towards. If you're what they call a quote-unquote celebrity or a star. People look up at the star or at a star in the sky because it illuminates in the midst of darkness. So he has influence. Make no mistake about that. And they tried to make a huge thing of this. And then all of his friends in Hollywood, all the other witches came to his defense. But he says here, there's something primal. God forbid you've ever had a member of your family hurt under criminal conditions. The actor began the story, which he said he has never before shared. The taken actor said he had returned home from overseas when his family member told him she had been sexually assaulted. My immediate reaction was, Neeson said before pausing, I asked, did she know who it was? No. What color were they? She said it was a black person. I find that very interesting. Keep in mind, this is early 1970s, Dublin, Ireland, or somewhere in Ireland, I would assume. I would wonder how many so-called black people were in Ireland at that time. How many so-called blacks were in Ireland at that time that it was a so-called black man who raped her? I honestly have to ask that question because it does seem very strange. I'm sure that people will say, well, yeah, there were blacks in Ireland at that time. There were blacks in Scotland or England, and they were in certain neighborhoods. It just seems weird to me that in Ireland, a country that in the early 1970s, they probably had a 0.05% black population. It was a so-called black man who allegedly raped his family member. That's why I state that it is a relatively high possibility in my mind that this entire story was contrived in order for him to generate a certain amount of controversy to galvanize his core audience. His core audience is made up of Caucasian men somewhere between the ages of 30 and 55 years old to go see his film. Mostly so-called Caucasian men who are not necessarily going to come on the internet and get into racial discussions back and forth, but who harbor those feelings. And they'll say, we're going to support Liam this weekend. You never know. Keep in mind, this is the same person, Liam Neeson, whose wife died under very mysterious circumstances in my view. But I'll be covering that in a minute. Neeson said he then went up and down areas with a baton hoping I'd be approached by somebody. Neeson admitted he is ashamed by his actions. Very strange. If you're looking for someone who raped a family member, one would think that you'd be looking for the person that did it, not for someone to approach you. So you think that the rapist is not only going to attack a woman and take advantage of her sexually, but he's going to see you approach and want to attack you. Doesn't make much sense. He says, I'm ashamed to say that, and I did it for maybe a week, hoping some Neeson gestures air quotes with his fingers. Black bastard will come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, you know, so that I could, he paused again, kill him. So that's where the controversy comes in. As I stated, I had no real issues with any of his commentary because, once again, brothers, I don't get caught up in what the white man thinks on any subject. I really don't care. I think that too many so-called black people get caught up in what white people think and so-called racially charged rhetoric and so on and so forth. For the most part, when they do say those type of things, is normally to try to get a rise out of you or to express their own feelings of incompetence or insecurities because, as I've stated before, most Caucasians who want to get into the circular racial conversation or argument with so-called blacks, they're normally white trash. Most successful Caucasians have no interest in getting into racial conversations. They could care less. They're too busy living life. Too busy taking nice vacations and so on and so forth. I just found it very strange what Liam Neeson said here. Why he chose to say it, when he chose to say it, how he chose to say it. His story does not make much sense. It just doesn't. But as a human being, one could understand someone being extremely upset by their female family member being taken advantage of sexually. It's just that his story is not adding up. According to the interviewer, Neeson knows how shocking and appalling his story is. Well, if he knew that, then why did he tell it? Did he think that that was going to create a bridge over the quote-unquote racial divide? Did he think that that was going to make people want to see his movie? There's a reason why you would say something like that at a press junket for your film. It's not like he was sitting down with Barbara Walters or Oprah Winfrey and confessed that. He said it at a press junket for his film, so it was done in an attempt to hustle his movie to his target audience. Now it says here, Liam Neeson's son pays tribute to late mom Natasha Richardson with official name change. Isn't that interesting? Liam Neeson had two sons with the late actress Natasha Richardson, who perished while allegedly she was trying to learn how to ski. Supposedly that's how she perished. And now one of his sons wants to change his last name from Neeson to Richardson. I wonder why he would do that for. Supposedly it's quote-unquote in honor of his mother. But that's not normally something that sons do just to honor the mother. Often it's to dishonor the father. When you see someone change their last name, it's normally to dishonor their father. So what does this young man know about Liam Neeson that would make him want to change his last name and no longer be associated with him? Does he believe that his father was somehow involved in his mother's demise? I don't know. Let's see here. Liam Neeson says it was horrible when I think back that I did that, he says. And I've never admitted that. And I'm saying it to a journalist. God forbid, the 66-year-old actor said. So even he admits that there's a certain amount of buffoonery in him relating this story at this time. That's why I said, why would he say that to a journalist on a press junket for his film? Wouldn't that be something that you would say to an Oprah Winfrey or a Gayle King? I mean, Gayle King, if she saw a 6'4" white man like Liam Neeson, who's a famous actor, and he sat down with her and poured his heart out racially, Gayle King would be ready to give him them old ass panty drawers of hers and invite him to ride that black donkey. That's what she would do. So once again, it just seemed out of place. This admission or this confession. That's how you know that it was strategic. At least in my view, it was. A rep for Neeson did not return Fox News' request for comment. The interview was pegged to Neeson's upcoming film Cold Pursuit. His co-star Tom Bateman chimed in, "Holy shit." Neeson responded, "It's awful, but I did learn a lesson from it when I eventually thought, what the fuck are you doing, you know?" Yes, that's the question that I'm sure that many producers of that film were asking themselves when you decided to say what you said. Unless they were in on it. So let's move along. Okay, so now this is going to be a very short video of Liam Neeson relating certain components or aspects of how he found out about his wife's quote-unquote tragic accident and how he responded to it. So I want you brothers to pay very close attention here.
I was told she was brain dead. And seeing this x-ray was like, wow. Yeah. But obviously she was on life support and stuff. And I went into her and I just told her I loved her. Said, sweetie, you're not coming back from this. You've banged your head. I don't know if you can hear me, but...
Now, brother, did you hear that? Liam Neeson said that he saw the x-ray, and the x-ray showed that she had suffered so much damage to her brain that she was going to be brain dead. He says that he walked up to her and she was on life support, and he came to her and he told her, you banged your head and you're not going to make it back from this. Well, according to the official story, she's the one who originally told him that she banged her head in the skiing accident. And allegedly, she did not want to have any emergency assistance or any hospital assistance. And her condition got progressively worse. And that's how she ended up at the hospital in Quebec, Canada. So why would he feel the need to walk up to her and tell her what happened to her when she's the one who told him what happened to her, according to the official report? That's how you know, in my view, something is right in Denmark there.
This is what's gone down. And we're bringing you back to New York. All your family and friends will come. And that was more or less it, you know.
But at that point, you didn't think that there was any hope?
Now, listen to that. Even the interviewer, Anderson Cooper, is like, damn, dude, you kind of morbid. I mean, normally a husband who loves his wife is going to be like, there has to be some type of way. My wife is on life support. You telling me that there's nothing that you can do? Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fly her down to the best hospital in New York, and we're going to work on her for the next month, and we're going to see what happens from there. Where there's a will, there's a way. That's what a man's going to do when he really loves his wife. He's not going to walk up to her and say, he's not going to walk up to his wife, who he supposedly loves, lean over, whisper in her ear, okay, baby, it's checkout time. Like, come on. Really? Even Anderson Cooper picked up on that.
She and I had made a pact. If any of us got into a vegetative state, we pulled the plug, you know. So
now, brothers, according to him, he alleges that he and his wife had a pact, quote unquote, that if either one of them had ever entered into a quote unquote vegetative state, that they would pull the plug. Now, who makes pacts like that, brothers? Is that really what popping in the streets right now? Is that hot in the streets right now? You meet your chick and y'all get married and you say, oh, honey, by the way, if I ever go into a coma, just kill me and I'm going to kill you. Like, you know, if it happens to you, I'm going to kill you too. Like, really? I'm not saying that it never, ever happens. Because, you know, sometimes people have those type of conversations where they say, hon, you know, if anything ever happens to me, I don't want to be half a person. But it just seems very strange that he advanced that type of conversation like that. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that they had that type of convo. I believe that he has something involved in what transpired there. Allegedly.
when I saw her and saw all these tubes and stuff, that was my immediate thought was, okay, these tubes have to go. She's gone.
My man said, these tubes have to go.
Donated 3 of her organs, so she's keeping 3 people alive at the moment. Yeah, her heart, her kidneys, and her liver. But
that must give you a good feeling.
It's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific. Yeah. She's gone, and I get the inheritance money. I tell you, these people are crazy. Let me rewind this back a little bit.
I don't know if you can hear me, but this is what's gone down. And we're bringing you back to New York. All your family and friends will come. And that was more or less it, you know.
Now, he's a world-famous actor. Once again, one would think that he would have said, we're bringing you back to New York. You're going to get the best care. And we're going to try to make this work. You're going to have brain surgery. And we're going to see how things go from there, how they progress. And that's going to be that. Because that's your wife. Ain't supposed to be no doctor that could tell you it's over and you're a multi-millionaire actor, no. We're going to find the best doctors and go from there. And once we have exhausted all of our options, then that should have given us enough time to make peace with that potentiality anyway. But if you supposedly love your wife, you're always going to try to do what you can for her to survive and to make her as healthy as possible. So there's just something really strange about his rendition of this storyline. I'm going to rewind it back just a little bit more.
I told her I loved her. Said, sweetie, you're not coming back from this.
Listen to that. Sweetie, you're not coming back from this. As soon as you see the x-rays, that's what crosses your mind?
You've banged your head. I don't know if you can hear me, but...
Once again, why would she need him to tell her what happened to her when you read the official report of how that entire injury transpired? She called him and let him know because allegedly he was filming a movie in Toronto. She was at a ski resort in Quebec. This is all according to the official report. And she contacted him and let him know that she banged her head. So why would he lean over and tell her you banged your head?
This is what's gone down. And we're bringing you back to New York. All your family and friends will come. And that was more or less it, you know.
But at that point, you didn't think that there was any hope?
She and I had made a pact. If any of us go into a vegetative state, we pulled the plug, you know. So when I saw her and saw all these tubes and stuff, that was my immediate thought was okay.
People have to remember certain things whenever they see these characters on television. They're actors. And their real life is an act also. Okay? They're double acting when you see them on screen. Their real life is an act as well.
These tubes have to go. She's gone. Donated 3 of her organs, so she's keeping 3 people alive at the moment. Yeah? Her heart, her kidneys, and her liver. But
that must give you a good feeling.
It's terrific, yeah. It's terrific.
Look at Anderson Cooper's face. Anderson Cooper's like, there's something wrong with this guy. There's something off about this dude.
And I think she would be very thrilled and pleased with that too, actually.
Okay, so now this is going to be the last component of this entire Liam Neeson narrative that I wanted to cover. And I honestly think that this is the most important aspect for the so-called black man to consider. And that was Michelle Rodriguez's attempt at a defense for Liam Neeson for his statements. Because I thought that it was a shining light. It provided some insight into the mind of the modern liberal female, especially the modern liberal female of color, whether they be considered quote-unquote so-called black or quote-unquote so-called brown or what have you, or whatever other silly designations or partitions that have been artificially created. Either way, within the mind of the modern liberal female, there's normally nonsense and silly justifications to protect the paragon of this society, that being the Caucasian male, who is the entity that most of them wish that they could stand next to. And it's not necessarily because of any type of shortcomings mentally on their part. It's more because, as I tell you brothers all the time, the woman gravitates towards power. And right now, the Caucasian man is in his rulership. Meaning what? He has his choice of the women. At least the prominent of them do. They have their choice of the women, whether the women want to admit that or not. The woman by nature gravitates towards power. She gravitates towards prestige. She looks at it as a higher compliment when a Caucasian man compliments her as opposed to a so-called black man. They just do. Some of them will try to deny that, but even subconsciously they do. And therefore, they will concoct and create fallacious and frivolous attempts at a defense of a prominent Caucasian man like Liam Neeson, even when he makes asinine statements. So let's get some insight on Michelle Rodriguez and that mentality. It says here, Michelle Rodriguez apologizes for her Liam Neeson defense. She says, I defended a friend in the wrong way. I had no intention of invoking such a terrible historical comparison. For those of you who don't know, we're about to read it. What she basically stated is that Liam Neeson can't be a racist because of how passionately he kissed Viola Davis in that terrible film that they did. I believe it was called The Widows. And that was a good title for that movie, because you would have had to have been a dead man to go see that bullshit. I told you brothers this a very long time ago in the wake of the quote-unquote Me Too Hollywood movement. Hollywood is willing to bankrupt itself in order to take the next 5 to 10 years and brainwash everyone in this society, but particularly the young boys and girls, into believing that females are smarter and stronger than men, and that females are action stars. That's why you'll see that every action movie that comes out or has come out in the last 5 years has basically centered around females to some degree. And Marvel is in the midst of transitioning over from being an entertainment entity that has superheroes that are mostly men to trying to turn them into mostly women. That is overall what the crux and the end game is for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is to first transition everything over from male-oriented superhero films to female-oriented superhero films, and then after that, slowly, very slowly, but incrementally introduce homosexual superheroes. And that's what a lot of that Jussie Smollett case was about, but I'll get to that in the video about him. But they really want the homosexual and the transgender to be looked at as the standard of this society. Well, they have a very long way to go because they have to mass brainwash the people. So anyway, let's check out what was going on here. Now, Michelle Rodriguez, she came to prominence in the film Girl Fight. Those of you who are old enough to remember, it came out like 99 or 2000. And she played the butch girl who wanted to box because she was mad at the world. She was broke. It was also a way for her to get closer to a certain guy. And she's basically played the same role since then. For the last 20 years, Hollywood has allowed her to play the same role for 20 years. And that's part of the reason why she made the statement that she made about Liam Neeson. She said that no one could kiss someone as passionately as Liam Neeson did if they were a racist. You know why Michelle Rodriguez said that? Because she has no idea what acting is about. She's not an actress. She plays the same role in every film. And the reason why Hollywood allows her to stay is because she's a pansexual. She's an out-of-the-closet pansexual, by the way. Or as she'll probably call it, bisexual, but it's actually pansexual. Because to maintain in Hollywood, you have to be a pansexual. You have to participate in the orgies, the bacchanalian orgies, so on and so forth. So she's probably been, who knows, she's probably been banged out by Liam Neeson, allegedly. A lot of these actresses, they've all been banged out by the same guys. A lot of them have banged out guys, and they switch and take turns and switch roles and all that other shit in more ways than one. But the reason why she said that Liam Neeson can't be a racist because of how he kissed Viola Davis is because she does not know what acting is about. You're a professional liar. That's all you are as an actor or an actress. She does not comprehend that because, once again, she's playing herself in every role. No matter what movie she's been in, Michelle Rodriguez has always played herself, whether it was Fast and Furious or Girl Fight or I think Blue Crush or Avatar. She plays the same person. She plays a sexually nebulous character who acts like a man or wishes that she was tough or something like that. Every film. So let's see here. Days after speaking out in defense of co-star Liam Neeson, Michelle Rodriguez has apologized for the way in which she went about it. The Widow star previously dismissed Neeson's anecdote of premeditated violence against a black man, claiming his on-screen chemistry with Viola Davis negated any suggestions of racism. To my friends and colleagues and my fans and community, I want to deeply apologize for my recent choice of words and poor use of example. You know what that probably means? Some wokety-woke, super liberal black chick who's probably friends with Michelle Rodriguez, or who knows, probably ate out her coochie a couple days before, texted her and said, that's not a good look what you said. Because these super liberal females, remember, I tell you brothers this all the time, the super liberal females want the so-called black man to believe that they're his friends. But the racialist aspect is an act. It's a complete act. It's really about feminism. And feminism is really about the woman trying to feel like the Caucasian man. It's not even about her trying to feel like all men. It's about her trying to feel like she's as powerful as the most powerful man in a certain kingdom. In this kingdom or in this rulership, The Caucasian man, he's in the midst of his rulership, even though it's weakening. It's nowhere near as strong as it was 150 years ago or 130 years ago. But they still maintain control. How do you know that? Because they dictate the education system. They dictate what people know and what they don't know. They also dictate the style of dress. So that lets you know who has the authority. If a Japanese man and a Saudi Arabian man are meeting for business, they're going to dress in suit and ties. They're not going to dress in kimonos or things of that nature. Now, depending on how rich the Saudi Arabian man is, he might say, fuck it, I'm just going to dress how I want to dress because I got the oil. But in general, in periods of diplomacy, people dress how the preeminent nation of people on the earth or the ruling class dress. And that's in a suit and tie. So I say all that to say that Liam Neeson represents that paragon that Michelle Rodriguez wishes in the recesses of her mind she could be with or be associated with. When Liam Neeson kissed Viola Davis, that's why I did a video about it. What did Viola Davis say? Oh, we need more roles in Hollywood for black women and white men. And that's a female, Viola Davis, who's married to a black man and disrespected him like that. And nobody says shit about it. Nobody said anything. So let's see here. To my friends and colleagues and my fans and community, I want to deeply apologize for my recent choice of words and poor use of example. Rodriguez wrote in a Saturday Instagram post, in a pressure-filled situation, I defended a friend in the wrong way. No, it wasn't a pressure-filled situation. It was just you letting out how you actually feel. You have no tact, you have no decorum, and you have no class. So what poured out of you is the real you. That's all. I mean, it just is what it is. I don't expect much from the liberal female. They're not particularly intelligent, bright, or astute. But I do respect her honesty. She confessed that when a quote-unquote woman of color is able to engage in a sexual relationship or a real relationship with a Caucasian man, they naturally assume that it's because he has no racial inclinations whatsoever. And people have to understand that there's a difference between sex and some actual level of spiritual affinity. I now realize how insensitive it was, and I had no intention of invoking such a terrible historical comparison. I've learned from this and will grow from it. No, you probably got chastised by some black people. That's all that happened. But once again, brothers, the woman for the most part is a two-dimensional thinker. The liberal woman, anyway. The liberal woman is two-dimensional. So everything with them is about what's directly in front of them and their emotions, and there's nothing of depth with them. So they don't really understand what to think or how to think other than through television and, through social media. So that's basically it on that and on the Liam Neeson saga. So we'll see if anything else comes of it. I doubt it, though. So peace.